Hello, I'm Dr. Daniel Griffin.
And I'm Dixon DePremier.
And today we're going to be discussing purulent dermatitis.
Sounds serious. It does. Anything purulent sounds serious.
But you know, interesting, the word that probably catches most people, that upsets most people, is dermatitis. People do not like having something that affects their skin, something that's visible to others.
I definitely hear that. When you put those two things together, then it's a frightening
Then it's a disaster.
It's a disaster.
You know, it's interesting. We always hear about leprosy. We don't see that much of it anymore, but we hear about it.
It's true.
But a lot of skin diseases were considered, lepers, considered having leprosy. There's always been a human dislike to skin problems.
Because it's something you can see right away, isn't it?
And I think that's what it is. Someone could be dying of cancer, but if they look okay, it's not as troubling. Mm-hmm. And so skin problems quite often bring people to the attention of medical providers because it's distressing to them, it's distressing to their family, it's distressing to everybody.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting when we say purulent dermatitis, it's a very broad diagnosis. And we're really making a distinction between a purulent dermatitis, something that looks infected, and a non-purulent, something that looks like it's inflammation without any obvious infection.
So, pray tell, Dr. Griffin, just exactly how would you make that distinction?
So it's a very crude. I'm going to say this is a crude but important distinction. You're trying to really determine treatment. Is this something where I'm going to be addressing it with antibiotics, soap and water, things that are going to target microbes, or is this something where I'm going to be trying to calm down inflammation, where the body is overreacting? And if somebody has an infection, we probably don't want to calm down the immune system.
No.
We want to jump in and help. We want to decrease the bacterial load. We want to help with the area. So the clinical disease can be pretty broad. It can be things that we recognize as impetigo. It could be a superficial infection, the gold encrusted around the nose and mouth. It might be a cellulitis. It might be where the area is red and hot. It might be a folliculitis. It might be under the armpits or in areas with lots of hair, where the follicles are being infected, either one primary or multiple, a true folliculitis. And it might also, there might be fungus. It might not just be bacteria. There might be a purulent fungal infection, particularly sometimes when we see it in groin areas, where it actually can become wet and macerated. And if you did an anti-inflammatory, you calm down the immune system, it would initially get better, and then it would get so much worse.
That's right.
So it's an important distinction.
How do you distinguish purulent dermatitis caused by microbes and purulent dermatitis caused by allergic reactions?
So it can be challenging. The purulence is hopefully going to help you, but as we discuss in some of our chapters, seeing white cells that are activated and are now yellow or green, pus, that does not always mean bacteria.
Nope.
Usually, fortunately, I will say with skin manifestations, if you're seeing purulence, if you're seeing pus, usually means that there's an infection involved. Where if it was, let's say, sputum, coughing something up, something coming from the nose, once you start to see yellow or green, it suggests a little bit more that there's bacteria. But our skin manifestations, if you see purulence, then chances are it's an argument that this is infective and should be treated. But not 100%. It's not always that easy.
Right.
And sometimes it can be both. It could be a fungal or an inflammatory process, which then becomes super infected.
Exactly.
So it can all get pretty, this is, as crude as this might seem, this is not easy.
So with and without itching, that sort of thing. I mean, if it itches or pain.
Itching and pain can be either, right?
You can see purulent dermatitis, but you have to ask further for the patient's reaction to that to know what category that falls into.
And the signs and symptoms, we'll talk about symptoms first, can be helpful. Let us say we ask, it's itchy, but what time of the day is it itchy?
Yeah, that's a very
If it's
good question.
itchy, really, really itchy at night, my
right.
son can't stop scratching, we
Right.
start to think about maybe scabies.
Could be.
Could be scabies.
Could be.
And so the symptoms are going to help us, we get a sense. Location.
Very important.
If it's in maybe the folds of the skin where it's
Very.
warm, dark, and moist,
Yeah.
we start worrying more about our underlying fungal disease, but that could be super infected.
Right?
The amount of time it's taken to develop.
Sure.
Are other people having similar issues? Something like we talk about scabies, it might be a whole family where everybody has an issue, but now, one child has this gold encrusted area on their scalp.
Exactly.
So, and that's why they bring that child in, but you look at the whole family and you see there's so much more going on.
You bet. So poison oak, ivy, and sumac.
So those are interesting because those will be very inflamed.
Very inflamed.
They may even weep, may even have fluid.
That's right.
But
Blister.
you may have blisters. Usually the blisters won't be pus filled. They're
And
going to
they're
be usually
on
clear.
exposed areas of skin.
And they're usually, again, a history. You got, my hands, etc.
Exactly,
You're not going to usually find it in a place where the person, but you may spread those oils to the other areas, complicating it.
Well, there are some remarkable exceptions to that paradigm, which I don't want to get involved with because, again, another personal story, but I spend a lot of time outdoors fishing, and sometimes you go out without all the necessary equipment, like, for instance, dare I say, toilet paper.
Okay.
And picking the wrong leaf is a very, very serious mistake to make for a person
Okay.
who doesn't know the difference between a benign leaf and a poison blank leaf. And I've
Okay.
only made that mistake once, but I know plenty of my friends have also made the same mistakes, and it's not pleasant. That's all I can say.
Okay.
It's just not pleasant. And that's not an exposed area of the skin because it's in a place where you'd least expect it. But there it is. So I wish I had a survival manual for what to do when
Which leaves not to use in that
which
situation.
leaves are the bigger the better. That's the rule of thumb there. The bigger the better.
Okay.
So the smaller, and if they're in threes, leave those alone.
I think there's some sort of memory trick
Oh yeah,
about
They're probably-
leaves of 3, leave them be.
Oh, I like that. That's very good. Very good.
Now, the diagnosis, as we're discussing, is again going to be visual most
Right.
of the time.
Right.
I would say more recently, some people are adding a little bit of technology to the diagnosis, something called dermoscopy,
Oh, I like that.
which is a little handheld device which actually allows you to look into the skin. And there are characteristic things that you would see with different settings.
Nice.
Your cellulitis, you might see the hyperemia, the increased redness.
Sure.
If there's an underlying scabies, you can actually see the mites in the skin. If there's a fungal infection, you see these characteristic comma forms. So it's mostly going to be a visual recognition, but there is some technology that can be added, the dermoscopy. Sometimes there'll be scraping. If it actually forms these little follicles, these little abscesses, then you might introduce culture. In most situations, you're going to just think about what causes that.
Exactly.
If it's under the arms and somebody's been in a moist environment, you start thinking about more challenging organisms like Pseudomonas. So the diagnosis, what's gonna give us our diagnosis.
Yep.
Once we have our diagnosis, that's gonna help guide us with treatments.
Exactly.
And if it's, let's say it's just a localized gold encrusted area around the mouth, you might use, this is technology, soap and water. You may just, twice a day, either you or the child, the affected person, may be recommended that they keep it clean with soap and water. You may want to start looking at topical antibacterial agents for the localized, simple, uncomplicated. We're not recommending oral antibiotics or systemic antibiotics, but soap and water, maybe topical antibiotics, and then keeping the area dry and clean. And again, not scratching.
Exactly. Oh, right.
But
Bad
if-
thing. When you have poison anything, it's impossible not to scratch. I
And
would say
that may be
impossible.
how it started. You may have started with your
Absolutely.
touching the wrong leaves, and now you have excoriated or scratched open skin, and then you end up with your secondary infection.
Right.
Hopefully you didn't get that.
I did not.
I'm going to hope that you came
not.
through.
One of the fortunate circumstances that I found myself in my early career at Columbia as a researcher was the fact that my laboratory was just down the hall from the Department of Dermatology.
Okay.
They never failed to bring a case to me that Doc, we don't know what this is. It could be infectious. It could be a parasite. They just got back from the tropics. They were on a honeymoon, and he didn't catch anything, but her whole body, where her swimming suit was, not on the exposed areas, on the areas that were not exposed, had a series of very distinct red bumps that arose as the result of her experience. And so they wanted me to help them investigate what this might be. So I remember this distinctly because I got the swimming suit. And I was asked to actually let it soak and then filter all of this water into a filter and then look on the filter to see if I could find anything. It took me all day.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, I found nothing. The patient switched swimming suits, of course, and in a matter of about a week and a half, the rash went away. When I said rash, it was papular. You could see distinct spots, right? It turned out that Janssen, this very famous bathing suit company, had switched dye makers for this particular color. And that turned out to be the cause of her problem. And it spoiled their whole honeymoon. I mean, basically,
I could imagine.
It ruined everything. And it wasn't infectious, and it wasn't purulent in the sense of weeping or blistering, but it itched like crazy. She said she could not itch this enough. And it was lucky that nothing became infected. And I'll never forget that case. We never saw another one like it. But,
a little bit of a mystery.
A little bit of a mystery. And, to spend all day long looking for something that wasn't there was challenging. Because you're never sure it's not there, even if you didn't find it. It could have still been there, but fortunately we didn't find anything.
Now, we talked about localized uncomplicated, where we're just soap and water and topical. But sometimes we're going to get complicated. And I remember seeing some cases with some colleagues in sub-Saharan Africa. And I always try to use as few antibiotics as possible. But some of the times these purulent dermatitis can be so extensive, so severe, that soap and water will not be enough. And so there certainly are times when you want to think about using antibiotics.
Right.
And a large percent of the time when it's purulent, you're going to have Staph aureus involved. So you want to be selecting antibiotics that are efficacious.
Sure.
So the anti-staphylococcal penicillins like cloxacillin or dicloxacillin, you may be wanting to use your sulfa trimethoprim as well. And that's going to be very similar to adults and children. Sometimes you'll use your cephalosporins.
Right.
So, but the big distinction is going to be, does this appear to be infective, where we want to approach it this way, or is it inflammatory, like our bathing suit story, where you're going to be doing nothing helpful other than drying out and making the skin more irritated by getting in there with your soap and water and drying it out.
Exactly. So. There's another syndrome to add to this. It's probably a minor one, but in some places it's not so minor. It's either called clam digger's itch, which is a syndrome of people who they harvest clams for their evening meal, basically. It's a hobby rather than way of making a living. And they're exposed at certain times of the year, not all year, certain times of the year, particularly in the fall and the spring, to water, brackish water, or even salt water, that results in the exposed areas being filled with these little red papules all over their hands, for instance, if they're going down. And the other one is called swimmer's itch.
So I'm going to stop you. We should talk about the terminology we're using so people are all on the same. When we say a papule or a macule,
well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to misspeak.
No, we should. No, these are, you're doing a great job. So a papule, right, is going to be a small, flat area. A macule is going to be a little bit larger, A nodule is actually going to be a bump. So yeah, it is going to be a papular, bacular. It's going to be small and slightly larger flat patches.
Exactly.
Then person's going to come in, they're going to be itching, and they've got this all over the exposed areas.
And little kids that go to camp, you were mentioning a syndrome of impetigo for kids that go to camp. Some children actually develop this, not the first year.
Mm-hmm.
The second year they go to the same camp. And it's on a flyway for aquatic birds like ducks and geese. And that's what we're talking about. It's a parasite that infects the bird. It tries to infect people, but the moment it gets into the skin, it realizes that you're not a bird. Mm-hmm. And so it stops. And the immune system just absolutely comes down like a sledgehammer on a fly, basically. Mm-hmm. And you get this enormous reaction. And it has actually prevented people from succeeding at opening these camps on lakes that are right in the middle of let's say the Midwest flyways, East and West Coast flyways. So it's not uncommon to find this in areas of extreme wealth where people can afford to send their children anywhere. Mm-hmm. And they send them to this exclusive camp in the woods in Maine, and they come back.
And the first year was
covered.
great.
They were fantastic the first year. I want to go back the next year. The next year they go back. The minute they get in the water, they break out in this rash. They never want to go back. And it really, it's an unusual sociological situation.
Well, I'm hoping that our listeners don't have the same reaction after this lecture.
Me too.
We're hoping they all want to come back.
Absolutely.
So thank you for joining us for our talk about purulent dermatitis.
Right.
We look forward to seeing you again.
See you next time.